All right, I want to welcome everybody to another edition of ATC Network Special Edition podcast. And today we have a great guest, a friend of mine that we met fairly recently, but we walk in the same circles. We care about the same things, and that's why he's with us today. His name is Ken Kronheim. He is the retired fire chief for Broward County. Does that put you at the right at the top?
Just below the top. I was in charge of the airport, certain divisions within the fire department, cities.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's above a chief?
Well, I was technically a district chief.
Oh, I see.
And above that, is, other rank structures.
Oh, okay.
Ultimately,
Gotcha.
the fire chief, who then reports to the sheriff of Broward County. Actually.
So you got the chief of a certain area or a certain discipline, yes, and then the overall chief.
Exactly.
Okay. Now I get it. It's very confusing. I've been meeting a lot of firefighters. I'm trying to figure out captain and chief and everything else. And I actually called a chief a captain once, and apparently that was offensive.
Right.
That I didn't know. But you've been retired. How long have you been retired now, Ken?
It'll be a year from last July. So only around a year and a half or so, barely.
Do you still kind of react to certain things like I got to go do this or something? Or
I do, and my wife has to keep me in check because I still like the thrill of putting myself in certain situations, whether it's stopping at a car accident or helping someone in need. I sometimes have to remind myself I am no longer on the job and be a little more careful.
Part of that is just a gut reaction or an instinct almost that you have,
Absolutely.
and that might never go away. But first of all, thank you for your service and all that you did for us as our community. How long were you in the fire service?
I was in public safety for a total of 37 years. I actually started out in New York City as a paramedic.
Wow.
And then I came down here in 1990 and worked my way up through the ranks here in Broward County, and finally got a chance to retire and call it a day.
Very, very nice. That's excellent. And again, I think it's wonderful. Now, you're not done, though, as much as you probably could be, and you could probably spend your time fishing and doing other things or whatever you like to do. You're not done. You went ahead. You became a therapist. Now, is that something you did while you were in fire service, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I was working on shift, even before I was a chief, when I was a captain, probably around almost 20 years ago, I decided to enroll in a master's level program to become a licensed mental health counselor at Nova Southeastern University here locally. So I was going to school at night and part-time, getting shift swaps and everything, and got my license probably around 17 years ago. And now I'm trying to save lives in a different fashion.
How long have you been married?
I've been married 11 years.
Oh, okay. Excellent. I was going to say that's a good recipe for marriage. Just stay that busy. You never get to see each other.
Yes, exactly. And it takes a lot of patience to be married to someone in the fire service and now a therapist.
Yeah. I mean, there's a dedication you have. Yes. What drove you towards, being in the fire service and then kind of moving towards therapy? Mm-hmm. Was there something you were seeing, or was it a calling, or what exactly was that took you in that direction?
Well, in fire rescue, not only did we fight fires, but we also function. My primary job, or most of my job, was functioning as a paramedic. And Scott, we usually on 911 calls, we're treating the acute physical emergencies, the heart attacks, the trauma, the burns, and so on, doing the rescues. But there was something missing. There was that psychological element that I wanted to help people with that you don't really get a chance to do as a first responder. It's too quick of an encounter.
Right.
You don't get to go deep and help them on the longer term impacts. And that's why I've really taken to psychotherapy is you get to sit down and plan out a treatment plan and help for the long term, not just the acute situations.
So you were essentially inspired by watching the people that you were serving in the traumas they were going through. But now you were kind of shifted to now you're really helping the first responders themselves.
Absolutely.
What was that switch about?
Well, listen, throughout my career as a first responder, I've watched many of my friends and coworkers' lives, families, and careers either be jeopardized, ruined, or lost due to the psychological impacts of doing this job.
Mm.
We are around and we're exposed to too much suffering, too much tragedy for it not to affect us in some manner.
Right.
And there was really no one helping the first responders. And it's amazing to see the focus now coming out to help first responders with peer support programs, training that you do, the interventionist training, which I'd like to discuss
Certainly
in further detail later on. But it seems to be the hot topic now. Unfortunately, suicide rates in first responders is near epidemic proportions right now. And it's not just the suicide, Scott. I mean, everyone focuses on PTSD and the ultimate consequence of suicide, but there's so many factors in between that need to be addressed. The lost marriages, the lost custody of children, the loss of a career.
And certainly the self-medication that could be going on,
without a doubt.
Which could become addiction and other things too. So it's you've been around, like you said, 37 years. And so you've seen a lot of change in how we view these things. I'm sure back in the beginning, it was the old school, what we normally see with firefighters and police officers and other people of service is, you have your day and then you go decompress and you get everything you need at the bar or, over a beer. And that was the therapy. And that's kind of how it was. Now, with all the things going on, everything from, unfortunately, school shootings, 9/11, the federal building in Oklahoma, I think it was, or all those kind of things where we start to see these massive issues. How has that changed in the way, maybe not so much the public, but within the departments? Are they viewing these things differently and taking them at a different level now?
Yes, absolutely. There's been a much more conservative effort and focus on behavioral health issues. And unfortunately, it usually stems from the cost of losing a member, and then now all of a sudden there's an issue to be addressed.
Yes,
and as these situations happen more frequently, obviously it's gaining more and more attention. And unfortunately, first responders, it's a blessing and a curse to be part of a brother/sisterhood of a public safety family. The blessing is the support, the camaraderie, the love you get, the being, the feeling. The curse is at times a overabundance of covering and enabling processes.
Okay. All right.
And if all too often we see members of public safety that other members know we're struggling, and it's our first reaction to cover them, to protect them.
Right.
Hey, listen, you don't seem that right, Joe. Why don't you go take a nap in the bunk room, sleep it off,
Right.
or hearing someone vent about some suicidal ideations or frustrations, or just things piling up, marital problems,
Right.
and so on. And using a firefighter analogy is, we need more smoke detectors out there. The best way to put out a fire is to put it out in its incipient stage before it grows.
Right.
And unfortunately, public safety has been very reactionary to behavioral health issues.
Right.
And, through great programs such as peer support, educating folks on how to intervene, like your program, we're starting to produce more smoke detectors in the industry, where people are going to recognize incipient stages of stress, of depression, of substance abuse, and no longer enable them. It's not geared towards whistleblow. It's geared towards convincing and intervening and getting people the help they need before they have to be reactionary, before they get that DUI, before they get busted on duty, and next thing you know, you're fighting for your job.
Or God forbid somebody gets hurt on the job because somebody is not able to perform their job. And you guys count on each other when you're out there. No matter what the circumstance,
yes,
you always have to have each other's backs. And if somebody is not up to that task, they're not just at risk, but the person who's counting on those risks. And of course, the community's at risk because you're supposed to be there for them. So there's a whole waterfall effect to this thing if we don't stop it at the top. And I think you made a great point, Ken. Somebody who is suffering from either mental health or I don't want to throw around PTSD too much because it's been bastardized in a certain way. It's been overused, but it is a serious issue. But it really it turns into other mental health things is what happens. But the person who is suffering from that mental health thing, or even an addiction, may not know what is going on with themselves. Exactly. It's the frog that's put in the water and then you bring it to a slow boil. The frog won't jump out. He won't know that he's boiling because it's that process that happens within. But everyone else looks around and they see this, boiling water. They see the issue, but they don't say anything. So there is a responsibility. When you're talking about a brotherhood, I think it's about changing the idea between what is protecting people and what is hurting people. Exactly. And I think we have to change that idea. Do you see some of that? Do you see the conversations happening more openly now, or is it still a tough nut to crack?
We're making progress, Scott.
Okay.
Especially with the whole peer support concept. I mean, back in the day, behavioral health assistance came in the form of a supervisor recognizing someone is at a deficit at work and referring them to their city, county, or department's EAP program. But that model, while there are some good EAP programs, the average public safety employee doesn't trust that process because it's linked too closely to their employer.
Right.
So the peer concept is designed that literally a peer with some type of training is able to recognize and point someone to resources that they feel comfortable in going to. So it's not a whirlwind employer mandatory referral performance issue that obviously is going to lead to even more stress and more lack of transparency. People are going to hide deficits to their employers. No one wants to feel vulnerable.
Well, it's that fear. You speak up, you're off the truck.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's always been there. And I think, but there are protections in, I believe, all departments, but I'm going to say most. There are protections that if you come forward and you have an issue, your job is protected. That's part of the education that needs to be put out there as well.
Yes.
That people need to understand. Listen, you're allowed to have problems. You know, obviously you got 5 or 6 times in a row and different things, and you've done, you know, but especially for that first, second time, I mean, you have a voice and you are protected. You have rights.
Absolutely. And listen, and it's always better to be proactive with a condition.
Yes.
Unfortunately, once you're already arrested for DUI, and God forbid someone gets hurt, there's not much to salvage at that point. If there are drinking issues, substance abuse issues, mental health issues, prior to things reaching a consequence that may or may not be legally reversible, you know, that's the key, is to intervene before the consequences get to, because even the best bosses, the best unions are going to have problems restoring a career or a livelihood if the consequence is catastrophic.
Absolutely. I mean, and it never has to be that way. I mean, you've been around for a while, so you understand it. There's an old term they used to say, you got to hit bottom, which is a ridiculous idea because bottom is death. And there's no coming back from that. You know, not really. But we don't have to reach that point. People are, you're right, they're reactionary, they're crisis oriented. They got to wait until things get real bad before they make changes. And this is just normal people. So what we're trying to do is say, don't let it get that way. As a matter of fact, Ken, I think I won't be speaking out of turn to say, truly, everyone who has had those kind of issues with mental health or with drug addiction or alcoholism in the service of the fire department, police, or wherever, and they've gone to that point of getting into that massive amount of trouble, at least somebody has seen the progression along the way and decided not to say something or do something. I would say it's a fair bet that there were many that knew. Would that be accurate?
Without a doubt. And unfortunately, Scott, I even see it with the suicides.
Yeah.
You know, very rarely will everyone around that person say, "Wow, I didn't see that coming." There were always some signs.
Yeah.
And you brought up a great point about hitting rock bottom. If we're gonna, that would be like saying we're not going to put out the fire until the building collapses and it
Exactly.
starts going out on itself.
Yeah.
No, that what?
We're not going to treat your cancer until it's all over your body. Why would you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, the key is not to allow things. Now I get what they're saying. They're really talking about motivation there. That usually you won't get motivated until the consequences are so catastrophic, you're at rock bottom. But we have to change that mindset. We cannot wait for rock bottom, especially really for anyone, but especially for someone who's functioning as a first responder.
And I know the peer support is all about that. It's reaching out to help people before it becomes catastrophic. Our intervention course, the Certified Event Intervention course through Addiction Training Center, which you can look up yourself at atceducation.com. It's a great course. We're getting that into first responders.
Yes.
Because we want them to know how to recognize some of these signs and to react to these signs before things get bad. You think about things that happen in our lives, and generally it's because we had one conversation that was meaningful to us that changed our direction. And the same thing could be done with mental health and with addictions. If you could find one person there at the right time to have that one conversation, you could change somebody's life and definitely save somebody's life in a situation where they're a first responder and their whole livelihood is based on you have to be fully alert and aware.
Without a doubt. And all it takes is one encounter, one break, one comment that can literally change someone's life for the positive.
Yes.
And it's, and if you think about it, you know, most first responders aren't shy about helping the public.
Right.
A police officer will tell someone, move your car, move this, move that. But they could see one of their buddies coming to work drunk or really looking hopeless, and they won't say a word.
Is there a hero complex involved in this?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
I mean, I'm going to oversimplify, but I'm just...
No, first responders feel that they're not the ones that need rescuing. They're the ones that rescue. And very rarely will they concede to the fact that they need help because they're the helpers. And it's very difficult for them to let their guard down. And this goes for even things beyond behavioral health and addictions, even for physical health issues. I know firefighters that come to work with broken arms and back spasms and this, and they just, I'll tough it out. They'll be all right, and so on. So yeah, that hero complex, which really equates to pride,
Right.
certainly gets in the way. Yeah, really for any type of client, but it takes it to the next level when you're dealing with first responders and even my military folks.
You're swallowing your physical pain and internalizing it. You're swallowing your emotional pain and internalizing it. You're swallowing any other kind of pain that you have and relationships and everything else, and you're internalizing all of that. I mean, that's just a ticking time bomb for anybody. It's not just about first, but for anybody who just keeps swallowing all of that stuff. It's a pressure cooker with no release valve. It will blow.
Without a doubt. And there's also an element, Scott, of control. If you think about it, when someone puts a uniform on, a badge on, and gets into a car or a truck with lights and sirens, we're pretty much first responders. When they get on duty, they're exempt from most rules of society.
Right.
We park where we want. We don't stop at red lights. If a door's locked, we bust it down. But so we're pretty much in control of our environment. A firefighter pulls out an axe, a Halligan tool, climbs up a ladder if they can't reach something. A police officer, obviously they have to do what they have to do to gain control.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's lethal. But when we're struggling internally and we can't control those feelings, it's very scary for a first responder to feel that they're not in control.
Well, it's curious, Ken, because they're trained, very highly trained in almost all instances. Everybody could always use more, but I know with firefighters, I know a lot of people think that every day they're out on calls, they're doing this and doing that, and they're like putting out fires in these big high rises, and they're doing no. Most of the days are not like that, but every day is about training. They're always being ready. But one of the things that's always trained first responders all across the board is backup. You always have backup. You don't go into the burning building by yourself. You don't tell people, or you don't like hide from people and go do things yourself. You tell people what you're doing. You get backup. Police officers have backup. Military, one guy doesn't go and fight a war. They get backup. So the concept of having somebody have your back is there.
Yeah.
But they can't, if we could somehow shift that paradigm to understanding that I need that internally as well. I need somebody to have me, and if there's a way to shift that paradigm, that would be excellent.
Absolutely. And listen, I believe we are making strides within public safety, with the peer, because, as we teach peers, members to be peer support members, they're also learning how to look introspectively within themselves
Mm-hmm.
as well. If people are willing to be a peer and to be an interventionist, it means they're willing to help. And really, if they're willing to help others, it should start with them being willing to help themselves.
Yes, absolutely. So is this the kind of the crux of your practice, is to work specifically with these kind of issues?
Yes, probably 95% of my practice is exclusively treating either active or retired first responders and military. Um, they they're just like everyone else, and keep in mind. And you mentioned before about PTSD. It's very important not to get tunnel vision. Just because someone is a first responder doesn't mean they have PTSD. Now, have they seen horrific things? Is there a possibility of stress reactions? Yes.
Hmm.
But first responders are allowed to have anxiety. They're allowed to have depression. They're allowed to have eating disorders, substance abuse. And sometimes it is related to exposure to trauma. And sometimes it's a predisposition or something they actually came on the job with. They're also allowed to have societal stresses, such as marriage problems, problems
Absolutely.
with children, deaths in families, money issues.
Yeah, I think that tunnel vision sometimes it translates to, if I open up and say that I've got some anxiety about this, all of a sudden I'm going to get PTSD. I'm going to be labeled with PTSD. I'm going to, I'm going to have to go on disability. This is going to happen, and it's like it's really not fair that we do that. PTSD is absolutely a serious issue, but these everyday stressors, they just don't have the similar releases we have, because I have a bad moment in my day. I could go take the rest of the day. I can go talk to somebody. I can chill out, and I won't face that again. They have a bad moment. They get back. They're brushing their teeth, and the alarm goes off again.
Mhm.
Now they're on a truck, and whether they're going to the same circumstance or not, that's playing. That tape is playing. So they don't have a chance to let go of the little stresses. So they're, but it is anxiety. It's depression. It's all those things, and they
Mhm.
just need to be able to normalize that and say, hey, I'm allowed to have these moments, and I just need to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, and I did some work with the first responders, specifically the urban search and rescue crews that went down to Miami for the tragic condo collapse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
during the debriefing, the first thing I told the team members is, one, it's okay to not be okay, but it's also okay to be okay. Because some of them were wondering why they weren't having reactions. Some of them were feeling guilty that they were having some reactions. And, the point is that trauma is very individualized to the person that was traumatized.
Hmm.
And what is traumatic for one person is not necessarily traumatic for someone else. And no one should judge someone else's trauma. It's extremely personalized. An example is I'll ask someone, would you rather get shot or get your finger caught in a door? And they'll say finger caught in the door. So if I ask them, could I slam this door on your finger? No, no way. And if I did, there would probably not be a more pressing issue
Right.
on this planet than that throbbing pain in that finger.
That's right.
Can you compare it to the severity of someone with a gunshot wound? No, but it's their trauma at that point.
Whatever you're experiencing individually at that moment
Absolutely.
is the biggest thing.
Yes.
And you can't compare to other people. You can't. Because a 14-year-old girl goes through a breakup in high school, and it's the most devastating thing in the world. Can you compare it to the breakup of a 30-year marriage? No. But for her, it's just as devastating because that's her in that moment. So I get what you're saying. People are very individual, and different things will affect them different ways. So what do we have to do, Ken? Because I know with ATC, one of the things we want to do is we want to get this intervention training into the departments, not just in the hands of the peer support, but in the hands of the guys on the job, the guys and the gals on the job. I always say, you don't train one person to use the jaws of life.
Exactly.
You train everybody.
Exactly.
That way, anybody who's in that moment, and that's why the more people who have this information about intervening and recognizing issues and communicating, the more people that have that, the more likely somebody's going to get caught before they can become catastrophic. Does that make sense, how I'm saying that?
It not only makes sense, Scott, it is imperative. It's not having people trained in how to recognize and intervene is like having a building full of flammables without any smoke detectors in it. You're going to miss something. You're going to miss something. And and I love the term interventionist. One, it sounds cool, but two, when you see something, whether it's an accident out on the street, someone getting bullied, someone going through a crisis, you usually have two choices: to do nothing or to intervene.
Right.
The world needs more people to intervene.
I agree.
We need more interventionists out there. You can never have too many interventionists looking out for our brothers and sisters, really in any workplace, but specifically for a workplace that is near epidemic proportions for suicide, substance abuse, divorce rate.
And that's across the board with first responders. I mean, you're dealing, you deal a lot with fire service, certainly, but all first responders. We're seeing those elevated levels in catastrophic life crises, which is divorce and gambling and sex addiction and all these different things rearing their head that destroy lives. And you're seeing them. They're so, I'm not saying everybody, but I think it's like a 25 or 30% higher risk when you're in the first responder field.
Absolutely. And and I pride myself in my practice that my goal is to save lives, families, and careers, in that order. Those are really the three things that get impacted, the most, and those are the three things that I'm on a mission for to protect.
If you wanted the public to know anything about this, if there was a bit of information you'd want the public to know, what would you want them to know?
Well, I would ask the public to, one, obviously be appreciative to the first responders, know what they go through.
Yes.
It's being a first responder is not a job. Once you're in, you're in. You can't, it's not like leaving a retail store or insurance agency or anything. You live, you sleep with the memories, the experiences,
yes,
the hypervigilance. When you go to work on shift and you're listening to that radio or you're waiting for that alarm to go off, then the next night when you're home in bed, you can't turn that hypervigilance off.
Yes.
And so I would ask the public just to try to understand what the first responders go through. And I would also like to clarify, for any first responders that are listening, think of the non-traditional first responders as first responders. Often we get tunnel vision on our police officers and our firefighters. But for instance, dispatchers.
Mm.
The amount, one of my positions in fire rescue, I had a stint as the chief of communications. And I can't tell you, um, I used to plug into the console and listen to some of the intake calls of people calling 911, screaming, crying that their baby isn't breathing, their father just collapsed. I just saw this car accident and his body's all over. I can't tell you the amount of stress that causes. And, so think of the dispatchers, think of the detention folks, the correction officers.
I think we got a little bit more flavor,
Yeah.
although the dispatchers is
Yeah.
good to mention because they're often forgotten,
Yeah.
and they don't deserve that. But it's just they're in the background, and thank God for them. But because they're holding everything together from the back, nobody sees what they're doing, but they're holding it all together.
Yep.
So thank God for them. But with the COVID crisis, we've seen this kind of resurgence about our understanding of what first responders means.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, traditionally, fire, police,
Yep.
some people would call the military a first response,
Mm-hmm.
but first responders. But then looking at EMTs and paramedics and things like that, which are part of the fire service for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then I saw this beautiful thing about these doctors and nurses being counted in the first responders, which I think is a brilliant thing.
Absolutely.
Because the stressors that they go through on a daily basis, the only difference with them is they don't have to go out on the calls. Everything comes right to them. They just don't have to drive as far.
And I have to tell you, Scott, and one advantage paramedics have and first responders is we may have an encounter with a tragic situation for maybe around a half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
These poor ICU, I'm treating several ICU nurses.
Wow.
And the rapport they build with the family, during COVID, the non-visits and family members saying goodbye via a tablet on FaceTime, people dying alone. It's amazing what they went through, and I very much worry about the mental health of our frontline healthcare providers that had that chronic exposure with these patients.
Do you think it's possible that we're going to see residual effects of this down the road, especially with our medical facilities? Because they're still kind of in it, so it's not like it's let go yet. But there might come a point where it's all of a sudden they get to take a breath, and all this might come rushing back.
Without a doubt, I don't even think it's possible. I think it's inevitable, Scott. Unfortunately, that the impact of what they went through the last 2 years, and you're right. Right now, they're just starting to take a breath.
Right.
But I don't think many of the impacts of what the healthcare system went through the last almost 2 years have even set in yet for them. There are people that have seen more death in 2 years than in 20 years in their careers.
Being from that field, and definitely with your therapy background, how important is that respect from the public? Not respect in the sense of let me bow down to your respect. Right. I'm talking about thank you for what you do. How important is that for first responders to hear if they're at the Dunkin' Donuts and they're getting their coffee and somebody says, "Hey, thank you for what you do." Is that important for us to do that?
Absolutely. There's nothing like someone saying, "Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done." A child waving.
Yeah.
Wanted to take a picture on a fire truck. But yeah, just that recognition. And, I don't have to tell you, relations, especially with law enforcement, has been strained over the years. I certainly don't want to get into politics when it comes to that, but to be honest, that just adds to the stress. I treat many police officers, and some of their biggest issues are stemming from feeling that they're in a unappreciated, if not villainized, industry. And it's sad because there's a lot of amazing, kind-hearted police officers that, their industry has been tainted up by some bad apples and bad experiences out there. But there's a lot of good ones out there that need to be shown support.
Well, and I can tell you that even the bad ones, they're not going out in their rookie year and may having problems. This is after years of service, and something happens with them. And I don't want to get into the politics either, but I've always been an advocate for, with all first responders, there needs to be more of a focus on maintaining a healthy mental attitude and having that mental health support. Not every 6 months, check the box, am I okay? I'm talking about weekly, especially in law enforcement when you're carrying a gun. Having the psychologist there in the station, working with them daily to watch for these signs, so that somebody doesn't go that far down. It doesn't become a catastrophic issue. But on our side, I mean, if you want to talk to your legislators about more mental health for our first responders, that's great. But please just thank them. Take a few moments. Take a few moments for the men and women in this world who will put their lives aside to make sure that yours is safe, and that's an amazing thing.
And if you think about it, the healthier and more mentally healthy your first responders are, I mean, obviously will have a direct benefit and impact on the public.
Absolutely.
Who wants someone going through a crisis helping them with their own crisis at that point?
And we've seen some of that in the past, where there was, the officers who work within the communities, and the fire departments were they're always at the schools and they're doing, and I know they still do a lot of that work. But it seems like we've lost a little bit of that community flavor to that. And we need to get that back. We need to help each other. They need a break, the first responders, and they need to give themselves a break. I mean, they need to really just open up. I hope one day that sitting down after a call and talking about how anxious that made them feel will be as normal as asking for a cup of coffee, because that's when we've reached the point where we need to be, right?
Absolutely. Listen, I can't divulge any stories, but you'll be surprised what is discussed at a fire station table.
Yeah.
And there should be no reason in the world why mental health and mood and stress isn't one of those topics, because we certainly talk about a lot crazier things.
Yes, I know. And there is a dark humor to it that allows people to keep moving. I spent 5 days with the Las Cruces Fire Department in New Mexico.
Awesome.
And got a little insight into some of their stuff, and brilliant people. And thank you to the people of Las Cruces. I had a great time, and you guys are wonderful people. But I also noticed some things that it's like, boy, somebody from the outside, this doesn't make sense how they're talking about some of these things, but that's their coping mechanism. And hopefully that'll change. But that's a tough nut to crack there.
Yes, and you bring up a good point, that outsider versus insider philosophy, Scott, and that's one of the things I'm trying to break down. I have the opportunity and the privilege to both be a first responder and a licensed therapist, and that's a rarity.
And an interventionist now.
Yes, absolutely, a proud interventionist. And that's somewhat of a rarity.
Yeah.
And what I would recommend to any clinicians listening is become familiar with the culture. Go to firehouses, go to police stations.
Do the ride-alongs. Do those things.
Do the ride-alongs. Take the classes. I know the fire service is very good on they have a whole education track
Yeah.
on orienting clinicians to the culture. And hopefully maybe that's something ATC will roll out one day as well, is some type of awareness to that.
Yes, absolutely.
But so yeah, I want my fellow clinicians out there wearing that hat, get out there and learn the culture, because if not, many of the clientele will not let their guards down for you. You're going to have to be able to talk the talk.
Ken, I've heard horror stories about people going to therapists and the therapist becoming so enthralled in the story that they're not looking at the feeling and the emotion and the other stuff, because for them, when you're talking about explosions and buildings and this and that and children and body parts, just the horrific things. Right. Of course, we get sucked into that story. We get sucked into, well, what happened then, and what, how hot was it really, and not, because you can't get past that. So that's why there's a real advantage. I'm not saying it, you have to be a member of the fire service, but as being a member of the fire service, you could hear the story, but look past that, because you can normalize that as a day in the life.
Without a doubt, Scott. And also keep in mind, as stressful as being a first responder is, many of the stress that my clients talk about aren't really emergency calls. It's politics. It's the administration or lack of administration. It's bidding for vacation days. It's who's talking about who. There's a lot of that stuff that frustrates folks when they're already in a stressful environment.
Interrupted sleep patterns, things like that, that really lends itself to it too, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
there's so much. Ken, we're going to have to address this again.
Absolutely.
I think there's so many things we could do to really kind of bring this out. But what we really want to share with you people out there today is to please take a moment and thank the first responders, not only in your life, but when you see them out on the street. Certainly don't get in the way of their duties, but if you see a police officer, a fireman, a paramedic, an EMT, a doctor or a nurse or anybody, obviously from our great military forces, please thank them for their service. Thank them for all that they do, because if they're not doing it, who's going to?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know we could judge, especially with police. We could judge a whole bunch about the police, but if they're not going to do it, who is? They're the ones who stepped up. Let's help them to do it better, not tear them down. And let's help all first responders to treat themselves better and to be healthier. So let's all get involved and do that. I want to remind everybody that the intervention course that we talked about, Certified Event Intervention, is available at ATC. It is our course. It is a certified course through NADAC and the Florida Certification Board. There are 6 CEUs involved if you need CEUs, but it is a national certification. You could be a CEI, a Certified Event Interventionist, and help people. And it's a fantastic course. You took it?
Yes, it was fantastic, and it got down into the meat and potatoes of skills, which, many programs are informative in theory. What I liked about your program, Scott, was it talked about techniques and skill sets, which is important.
And we try to tie them to skills that most people already have. Absolutely. They just don't realize they have them. And it's not that you don't have to be some magical mystery person to make real connections with people in moments. We all do it.
Yep.
The funny thing is we'll do it more with our dogs than we will with other people.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So check it out, atceducation.com. Or if you want to call Karen and tell her that you saw it right here on the podcast with myself and Ken Kronheim, sorry. Tell her you got that. We'll give you a discount. 786-514-0893. 786-514-0893. Mention to Karen you saw it on the podcast with myself and Ken talking about first responders. We'll give you a little discount right there. So you can take the course online. We also have live courses throughout South Florida. So give us a call and find out about it. Ken, I'm glad that you decided to get involved and to take this course. And I want to thank you for your service in the fire service, but more importantly, your your service to the fire service right now, which I think is just as important as anything you've ever done.
It was a pleasure, Scott, and I appreciate you and Karen's passion towards this mission as well. It's very important, and I know there's certainly a personal flair in there, and it's very much appreciated.
Ken, my friend,
take care of yourself.
We'll catch you next time, and we'll catch you next time. Make sure that if you like this show, you subscribe to the ATC Network on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook at Addiction Training Center on Facebook, and we'll catch you next time right here at Addiction Training Center, the ATC Network.